have 2 microphones, we've got 5 people coming up. I'm going to introduce them one at a time. And it's not by the size of their personalities, it's just random, okay? So, Paul, let's have you up. This is Paul Toohey! Panelist number 1, what's your name, where'd you come from?
I'm Paul, I'm a software engineer and test, and I'm from spurroom.com.
Good man. And you were at Late Rooms at some point?
Yeah.
Good man. Okay, so, second up is the head of engineering at Shop Direct. Before I call him up, did you know that Black Friday has already started on very.co.uk? Just saying, just saying. If you wanted to go and get your bargains right now, go to that website, just saying. I'm not here to promote anything, but if you were to have some spare cash, there are many deals to be had on very.co.uk. So,
can you just answer the bottom question there, please?
Can Lee crack nuts with his beak? It's got 7 bloody votes. Right. Whoever put that up doesn't know me because they've spelt my name wrong, and the last person that spelt my name wrong, let's just go back. The last person that did it were faced with this. And you know what's coming, guys. You know what's coming. Eventually, we're going to get there. Right, so, who entered the question? Hands up. Because this is going to happen to you. Your house, your family, your fucking pets, your neighbours. Okay. It's L-E-I-G fucking H. Okay? Right, so, the next person up is... I know who's up next. It's Richard George from Shop Direct. So Richard, 10 seconds, introduce yourself.
I'm Richard George from Shop Direct.
And I could have guessed he was going to say that. Okay, next up is someone that's already been on stage once tonight. It's Jem Hill from BBC! Woo! Ten seconds to say something different from what I've just said.
Yeah, I'm test engineer at BBC Research and Development Department, to be specific.
It's told me, hasn't it? Cool. Welcome, Jem. Thank you. And Jem only stood in yesterday, by the way. We only got knowledge that she was coming to the event yesterday, so we reached out last night. So that's pretty cool that within like a couple of minutes she replied and went, yeah, that sounds cool. That makes Jem cool. Okay, so next up, some say he's half man, half beard. Some say he's a hipster. I say no, he's fucking not. It's Ian Smith from Rock! So again, Ian, 10 seconds to say something I haven't already said.
Ian Smith from Rock.
Okay. Ooh, yeah. Okay. Next time, if the AO.com guys want to provide anyone to be on stage, feel free, because Ian won't be on the next one. Okay, so our last but not final guest started with a micro talk, a flash talk here at Liverpool, probably about a year ago. Came back, did a mini talk, spoke at Test Bash 4 weeks ago. It's Claire Reckless! Woo! Okay, so Claire, you have 10 seconds to say something I haven't already said. Go.
Oh, hi! So I'm Claire, and Reckless, it really is my real name, yes. I think it's a really good name for a tester. So there you go.
Reckless by name, reckless by nature. Okay, so we've got 2 microphones. I'm coming off the microphones now. I'm going to hand the microphones randomly to 2 people, and we're just going to pass them around. There's only 2 between 5, so I'll give them to Richard and Ian to start with. That doesn't mean you're getting the questions, by the way. It's just easier to pass them around. Okay, so the question that has been voted for by you guys, the crowd, feels a bit like X Factor this, doesn't it? Right, is there haven't been any significant changes in the world of testing in the last 2 years. Do you agree or disagree, and why? So, if I could, yeah, Paul. So, we're going to try and limit you to 60 seconds to make sure we get round everybody. So, Paul, 60 seconds, go. Woo!
So, I disagree with this statement, but I can understand why people think that testing hasn't changed. A lot of it depends what industry you're in. So, if you look at the world of testing, if you are doing the same thing over and over again, then it's not changed. But from my perspective, there's a lot of stuff that's happened in the past 2 years. So, let's look at it from a perspective of what is coming up. So, GDPR. How are you going to test GDPR? What's going to happen with that? Has anybody in this room actually looked at testing GDPR yet?
Yep.
Wow, that's a lot more people than I thought there was actually going to be. So that's something that's changed in the testing world now. It's going to be an absolute nightmare for everybody. So that's something massive that's come up. Personally, from my perspective, I've got to play with a lot of cool stuff over the past couple of years. Things like behavioural engineering, some of the good stuff that's happening in security testing. So if anybody's a big fan of Kevin Mitnick, and now he actually does things for security testing, he doesn't just try and penetrate test, he tries and pretends to be people. So that's kind of a next thing to look at, trying to socially engineer how people do things.
Good man, Paul. Richard, do you want to go next?
Well, this sort of this sort of assumes that the homeowners think of the world of test, and we all know there isn't. Every company you're working in, even down to departments with the company you're in, changes. Every time you read an article on test, you learn something, you're changing the way you're doing testing. So there are some companies out there who do strict waterfall, and they have a whole army of people called testers who are there pressing buttons. Other companies who've done massive amounts of automation, and I worked at Amazon where we don't have testers per se because it's relevant to the job you're doing as an employee, as a developer with Amazon. So it all comes down to where are you in the situation you're at and how you can change it around you. It's the usual thing. Think globally, understand what's happening around in the overall industry, but then act locally and apply what you're learning to what you're doing. So yes, the world of testing has changed if you want it to change.
Okay. Ian, you're next, mate.
So some might say that I've only been in the world of testing for 6 weeks, so I don't really have a 2-year perspective on it. Well, I have been in the world of delivering IT stuff for a very long time. I guess what I'm really thinking about is less actually what's changed in the last 2 years, rather than the things that have come along in the last couple of years that are sort of have potential to change. And I always think of artificial intelligence and machine learning and stuff like that, and I kind of ask myself, well, you can see evidence of people starting to do bits of test automation that's automating stuff you couldn't do before because of that kind of new technology. So has it changed in the last 2 years? I don't think I've got a perspective to say, but I think it's definitely going to change in the next 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Artificial intelligence is clever than you.
Can you change the slide?
Everything's clever than me.
The panel.
Okay, Jem?
Yeah, very much the same, that I don't know if testing has changed. Well, testing has changed because what we're testing has changed. Like, we're doing a lot more with things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, a lot more personalisation stuff, and big data and that kind of stuff. And I think testing has to have changed because so much new stuff has come along. And that forces change because we have to try and keep up with it.
Okay. Claire, do you want to take this one?
I would disagree that there have been no significant developments, although it depends what you kind of mean by significant. I think in my kind of last couple of years I've been involved in the kind of testing community. People seem to be becoming a lot more aware of kind of becoming less kind of involved in things like test cases and more involved in exploratory testing, and kind of casting the net a bit wider, broadening the horizons, looking into things like security, and DevOps and helping other people to test as opposed to doing all the testing themselves. And the role is becoming very, it's not just sitting and testing all the time, it's very much a broader role, so that seems very significant to me.
I think you've all hit on something really, really important. Testing has changed in the last 2 years, otherwise we'd be dead, which ties into the next one of the questions there. But actually, the future as well. So if you look at IoT, if you think about Alexa, how do you test Alexa VR? Sony PlayStation down the road. We've got anyone from PlayStation here? Okay, so they've been testing VR now for like 8 years. They've been testing augmented reality for 10 years. But they're already looking at the next stuff, the IoT. If you think about the car parking system, where you just press a button on your dashboard and it finds a space, it pays for it, it reserves it and guides you in using your sat-nav with no interaction from your phone. Those systems are being tested right now. So I'm with you guys. I think we've changed in the last 2 years, and most important, I think you said it, Jim and Ian, looking forward, we're going to have to change, guys, and if you don't like that, you're in the wrong industry. IT is all about change. So we've got to go on the front foot. As testers, we have to add value. Okay. Does anybody want to challenge, not challenge, but does anybody want to throw something out of their own opinion from the crowd? We'll have 1 or 2 people from the crowd if you've got anything to add to that question. Anyone? Don't be shy now.
A room full of IT people with no opinions, I don't believe.
Yeah. No? Oh, I'll come round. You've got the microphone. You've got 60 seconds, by the way.
You talk about AI testing and like facial recognition testing. So I was part of the team that was testing facial recognition, and it was ridiculously hard. So I just want your view of how, from a testing point of view, how you would actually go about making a test plan for facial recognition.
Oh, bloody hell. Wow. I think that's really tough. Does anyone want to take that? Okay, I thought you might.
I think it's kind of an interesting one when you mentioned the test plan there.
Yeah.
You are assuming, you're trying to make a test plan for something which is random.
Yeah.
So I think that's the downfall trying to make a test plan. I mean, I've not done facial recognition, but I've done several tests, several works which involves with Elasticsearch and how that does in order, out of order, max searching from a particular perspective. You can't come at that with a test plan. You have to fire test data at it and see how it reacts. And I guess if I was going to look at facial recognition, it's something I've never done, but I'd look at it the same way. I mean, the first test for me would be, here's my face. If I take a picture of my face and put it in front of it, will it unlock whatever it is to unlock? That's test number 1. No, it doesn't. Great, okay. I'll take a picture of my daughter. Put that in front of it, our iPhone X. Does it unlock? Because they could even test that, because a 10-year-old can unlock the remote phone. And yeah, you need to look at it from that perspective. I think test plans, there's a question there about agile and how it's affecting things. I think a test plan and agile don't know if they work together, because you're prescribing something that's meant to be fluid.
Does anybody feel that we're moving to a place in software, especially with that question, where we're looking for a good answer rather than the right answer? And that really goes against a lot of our principles as testers when we passed the ISTQB. They said there's right and wrong, it's black and fucking white. No, sometimes it's about a good answer. Richard?
Yeah, I've got a little, I tell stories like these guys to tell how boring I am, because you hear the same stories I talk about. But anyway, when I was working at Amazon, one of the things we were doing is when you in a warehouse, stuff is just stored in a, what's known as a bin, it's just a cubby hole, thousands of them, and just shove stuff in. So it's a random collection of stuff in this cubby hole, and we were using recognition cameras to try to work out what's actually in the cubby hole, which is great. You've got a series of books, you can read the spines, that's great. But if you've got 6 bags of balloons, really hard to work out what it is. And when we came to testing, there was no black or white. What we were using is things like Mechanical Turk to put pictures out to the masses and get probabilities back. So the system thought this was 2 bags of balloons. Mechanical Turk returns back 80% of the people thought it's 2 bags of balloons. That's pretty good. So we absolutely moved away from black and white and went very strongly towards probability-driven assurance that we were getting about the right answer. I would imagine facial recognition is probably on the same sort of spectrum where you're trying to get a near enough right answer.
I think in a world where we're looking at personalisation in software, so you look at our website, very.co.uk, there's an element of personalisation there. If anyone's got Spotify, there's personalisation there as well. Now, personalisation is really tough because it's about a good answer. So when I go on Spotify, because I listen to New Order, it automatically assumes I'm going to like the Smiths. No, that doesn't mix. But to them, with their algorithms, that's a good answer. And to 90% of people, it would be a good answer. And I think your technologies that you're looking at, that's bloody tough, I tell you. We don't have the answers, actually. If anybody in the room wants to add to that, afterwards, have a beer with this gentleman. Is that all right? We're going to move on to questions. Now, we started with that question, but Duncan hadn't scrolled up to the top of the screen. So we started with a question that had 7 votes. Whereas the real question we should have started with was, and I am blaming Duncan here. I'm sorry, we live in a blame culture.
So at least I'm not standing next to the microphone and the speaker, it's fine. I'm not giving
Okay, so the next question, guys, and I'll hand the microphone back to you guys, is, and I think this is a real hot topic, should testers code? Why? Why not? Who wants to go first?
Happy to go first.
Yeah, Jem, good call.
So the reason I've gone first is because I'm very vocal and I'll continue to be vocal about coding is one of the most boring things I've ever done in my life. I hate it, I'll do it. I'm doing it at work as we speak, but I dislike doing it and I'm never going to do it as more than 40% of my job, otherwise I'll find another job. And so I guess for me it boils down to, if you need to do it, then learn it. If you feel you need to learn it, or it will make your life easier because it makes my life easier, then do it. If you want to do it, do it. But if you're like me and you find it boring and frustrating at the same time, do what you need to and leave the rest.
Okay. Claire, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually kind of similar view to Jem. So again, I can code. It doesn't interest me that much. I do it because I have to. I write some automation and scripts and things like that, and I use it for what I need to use it for. But I'm never going to want to sit there all day and write automated tests or code. But I think if that's what people want to aim for, then absolutely they should. I think it can be very useful for kind of having, identifying risks and helping, sitting with devs and doing and running through code and getting them to explain the work that they've done. Absolutely. I think everyone, testers should ask themselves what the benefits could be of learning about code or even learning to read code and understand it, even if you're not particularly confident in writing it. It absolutely can be useful, but I think it's, not necessary for all testers to learn to code.
Okay.
I come from another way. I've got a software level, I'm being coding. I still code, so I love coding. I don't actually like testing, but you realise that actually it's important and a skill you need to have. I think one thing we've moved away from it. I've got this campaign going on at work at the moment about the word resource. I absolutely hate the word resource. It dehumanises us all and it allows people to treat other talented individuals as cogs. And the reality is we're not cogs. As we go forward to Agile, we're looking at sort of changing of philosophy. When we talk about ownership, we also got to recognise that in any particular group we have people who love coding like me. We have people who love testing. We have people who love doing both. What a successful team needs to do is build the skills required to be successful using the people they have on the team. And therefore, I personally think, yes, everybody should know how to code. I think I've taught my wife to code, and it's a skill that's really useful, no matter what your job is. You don't have to enjoy it, it's a useful skill to have. And in building successful teams, you need to mix everyone together. Having someone who loves testing and having somebody who loves coding is great. If we were all the same, then we wouldn't actually get that much innovation or excitement.
Okay, Paul, do you want to go next? And then I'll come to you.
Should testers code? I think that kind of depends on if you want to and where you want to go with your future career as a tester. So, kind of backing on some of the things that you talked about there, I really like it when developers understand testing. So, the way I think that, let's change this question a little bit. I think testers should understand code, but developers should make it easy for them. So I'm guessing some of you may know about specification by example. So what I really liked about working previously and how this has worked has been a case of a new feature would come in, a developer would TDD it, do specification by example to explain what's happening, and then the tester could look at the code with the developer, and then you can make a decision on whether this needed a tester to look at. And because they use specification by example, it was written out as saying, we've written an automated test that does this, and this. So, do you want to look at it? Do you understand how this works? Do you understand what's happening? And they didn't really need to understand it. It was JavaScript or C# or Go. It was the fact that there was a nice little English understandable reason in that let them know what was happening. So, testers code, if you want to learn it, great, it makes everybody's life easier. I think there should be an equal push the other way to make developers make code understandable. And I think that works really well. I think if you hit that sweet spot, then your entire CD pipeline is just bang, 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 bang. You look at it and you go, right, okay, so this is, well, what about this, what about that? You haven't really covered it, maybe we should take a look at it. But beyond that, it's, yeah, if you're a tester and want to learn how to code, great, I think it's a good skill to have. A bit like you, I've come the other way. I used to be a developer who spent a lot of time writing unit tests for my sins, and then actually got into testing. And it's kind of helped me that way because I understand both sides of it, so I can argue both of them and make people understand that it's not a hard, fast rule of you must understand testing, you must understand development, you must understand coding, you must understand architecture. It's a mix where we have to blend together and make everything nice and understandable for everybody.
So I've got a question for you, Paul.
Yeah.
You've spoken about developers making code more understandable. Would you say, in your experience, where you've seen pairing happen between a developer and a tester, that's naturally happened? Would that be a good technique or method to breed that?
So, I hate Three Amigos.
I didn't mention Three Amigos, I said pairing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's a better way of doing it. I think that if you put something in at the beginning to have a conversation about something, and then verify it at the end, then things are getting faster. There's a gap in the middle where things change and understanding gets lost. So just, checkpoints every now and again. I mean, per programming, per testing, doing it together is brilliant because you sit next to each other and people can ask questions and things like, so I'm about to write this test. Does this make sense? You go, it should say A when someone presses A. Yeah, that sounds about right. And even though the tester can't understand that, they can see the output from the test and they go, yeah, that said A, I'm happy with that. That's good, yeah, fantastic. I don't need to bother testing that. And the more and more confidence that people get in that, the more and more confidence people have in the development, and then it breaks down this, yeah, there you go, have that bomb, bang, don't test that. And yeah, sorry,
good stuff.
Stop now.
Ian.
So, I get the last word. I feel I use my power only for good. No. I've got a 9-part answer. I have 2 answers to this. And one answer is I think everyone should be able to code a little bit. I don't just mean testers and people in IT, I mean everyone. Because people think technology is magic. And learning to code, even a tiny bit, will be able to teach people that technology is not magic. And actually I think that's an important mindset change that will be good in the world. However, that wasn't the question. That was just my little diversion. Should testers code? I think that professionals in IT should be deep in something. So before I came to Rock 6 weeks ago, I worked at IBM where we used to talk about T-shaped skills. What they meant by that was that you need people that are deep in something. That sounds a bit bad. skills in particular areas, but you also need the crossbar of the team, which is that people have breadth, maybe not deep in everything, but enough so that a tester, someone that's deep in testing, can work with a developer who's deep in development. And likewise, that developer should have enough breadth to be able to deal with that tester. And you know, as you go through your career, some people, myself included, like the idea of pie-shaped skills, which is where you've deep skills in two things. So I think that be deep in something, have deep skills in something, and whether that's development, whether it's coding or testing, whatever it is, recognise that once you've got those deep skills, you also need the breadth to be able to then communicate and become effective in teams of people with other skills.
I'll put it on mute. You have to unmute it.
Why would you do that? Why did the instructions say put it on mute?
I can't help it.
Okay. Some really interesting answers there, guys, and I loved the honesty amongst all of the answers. Has anybody got a question for the audio? We're just going to do one question and make sure it's relevant to the question that we've been talking about.
I think there was some very good points there about something I agree with, like code literacy kind of thing, being able to read code even if you can't write code. That can be very helpful for a tester. But something that kind of deals with this is, okay, so should test code? Are testers expected to code? In roles where people are expecting automation testers and, you know, people are hearing this like great expectation of like, oh, we can get someone to spin up an automation suite and then they can test all our things for the same speed of 30 manpower kind of thing. Is it not so much that should test code, or is the industry expecting testers to code? Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
Okay. Does anybody want to answer that?
Yeah. I think it's wrong to expect testers to code. Well, straight up. We're actually starting to change the language at ShopDirect, moving away from just the term tester and starting to talk about test engineer. Part of the reason we're doing this is that we believe that automations you called out, they have deep knowledge in this area. It doesn't mean that they're able to code an automation frame. They may just pick an automation framework off a shelf or whatever, but they understand how it works and they're able to reach out and educate the developers and help them do their own testing, because we're also a strong believer that the software engineer is responsible for his own, eating their own dog food. Should it be required that a tester codes? No, because not every test job requires coding. But again, it's a useful skill.
Anybody else want to add something to that specific question there? Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the question. Right, so number 3. If you were given a graduate right now in this room, or no, back at work, how would you train them? If you were given a graduate right now, you'd probably take them for a beer, wouldn't you? But we're talking about in the work environment, how would you train them? What would you do with them? So, who wants to start first? Oh, that was really eager, that is. You went last time, you want to do first this time, okay.
I'm addicted to the fame of having the microphone on, so I love this question. I would give them a meaningful and interesting problem to solve, and then I would help them. But I wouldn't necessarily train them at all. I would wait for them to find the things that were hard about the problem, and then I would try and make sure they got the right support to be able to solve them. I guess I could go on about that longer, but that's basically the essence of it.
Okay. Claire, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so we've had a couple of graduates and placement students in our team recently, and what I've been doing with them is when they first start, I get them to, because we create security software, so we have quite a number of kind of test environments and things that are set up, so I usually get them to go through and set up an environment and install the products and configure the entire product and get to grips with the architecture of the product and where, the communication between all the components and database and all those kind of things, so they can actually get a feel for what they're going to be testing before they really start testing it. Encourage them to ask questions, work through documentation, things like that. We also do quite a bit of pairing and mobbing, so we do things like mob automation sessions, so go back to the coding thing for those who can't code so well. it does help them, you know, kind of build up those skills if they want to do that. And after we found, you know, the graduates and placement students have found that really helpful for kind of learning what to automate and how our automation framework works. And pairing, you know, just exploratory testing, pairing sessions and modelling sessions with other more experienced testers as well. So that's where we tend to start with our graduates.
But you do something else as well. Right, so Claire is one of the most modest people you'll ever meet. So last week we went to Edge Hill University and we did a closed Liverpool Tester Gathering event for just the students of Liverpool Tester, of Edge Hill Uni. Right, and what Claire hasn't relayed here, which is just as important, is life skills. I'll stand here. Right, so Claire brought one of her graduates along to Edge Hill University, and he stood on stage and he gave, I'm going to go for him, and now I'm going to stand over here, because I'm away from all the speakers. She gave one of her graduates an opportunity to go on stage and speak for sort of 10-15 minutes in front of 80 to 100 students. And that's something that you should be really proud of, Claire, because when you did that, we were all in awe. And that was through coaching. And you've not mentioned that.
I didn't really do it.
Well, no, you did. You're saying that, but you gave them the confidence to come and do it, and that ties into that question, so well done. Okay, who wants to go next?
I joined Shopthread August last year, and within the guys who report to me, I had a handful of apprentices, test apprentices, engineering apprentices, even a couple of architecture and BA apprentices. They were spread through the team, just going and doing stuff, so the testers doing some stuff, not a lot of interesting. So what I did was actually gather the gear together and give it to him.
Right.
Okay, so we needed to do something to improve the skills of young talents. Just chucking them into a team and saying, oh, he's your mentor, go and be a librarian or whatever, doesn't actually teach the kids much. You aren't really getting under the skin. You're not promoting them to ask difficult questions. You're not getting to look at modern technology. Quite often they just sit there. So what I strongly believe in, is that you bring them in, you give them real work. So no tests, no pretend work. You give them meaningful stuff that's hard, and you then ask them to find out for themselves. You promote self-learning right from the very start. And it's the same whether you talk about a tester, whether you're talking about a developer, whether you're talking about a BA, whatever. It's getting them into self-learning. In testing, it's a really fast-moving world. We've moved away from people just sitting near a bank pressing buttons, or we're moving away from big old test plans. We're looking more agile. It's a really fast-moving world. There's a lot of stuff for your graduates to get the teeth into. What we need to be doing is actually promoting them and getting them to do that right from the start.
Thank you. Jem?
So I've never trained anyone. I've only been testing for like 3 years, and so I'm still quite new. But I think so the way I learned testing was I figured out testing was what I wanted to do and tried to find things I was passionate about. So I think I'd just try and figure out what they were passionate about and then help them learn more about that. So I started out, I found administrative testing, and then I found more conferences and the meetups, and I went that way. So I think I'd come more of a sort of almost the opposite way. Obviously, if there was someone there with me, I'd give them real work to do, but I'd also like make sure that they were aware of this massive community that they can go for and ask questions to, and figure out what they were passionate about and help them learn more about that.
Yeah, good shout. Paul?
You can't stole my answer by talking about coaching. I agree with everything everyone said about giving them meaningful work, about giving them things that they can get their teeth into, but coaching is the key one for me.
Yeah.
It's about pushing them in the right direction. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I've never trained a graduate before, but I have trained placement students, and when I was a graduate, my first 6 months I spent the whole time going, do I actually want to do this? So you've got to realise that as a graduate, you can't figure out if you actually want to do this. So you've got to put that in effect, but I agree with a lot of people said, give them meaningful work, give them things to do. Don't put them on a side project that's never going to get work. Keep them rewarded, but it's got to be the coaching bit. You've got to push them forward. You've got to be there when they need support. I think the big thing about it is, this has not been mentioned, but let them fail.
Yeah.
If you let them fail, they will learn more than being pushed to the right direction. And you can't intervene. If you see it going wrong, you can look at them and give them a piece of advice, but let them carry on going the way that they're going. Because they will learn more from that than you pushing them in the right direction. They will learn why they shouldn't go that way and why they shouldn't do this. Because they'll do it once and then they'll never do it again. And it's inherent behaviour and how people learn. You learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. And so, you know, it's a big thing. Publish your successes, publish your failures as well.
Right. I think that's a great answer, Paul. I think something that maybe has been missed off this is looking at it from the manager who receives the graduate into the workplace. From my perspective, looking at 9 different companies over 18 years, there's not a lot of effort that goes into supporting the managers who receive the graduate into the company to get them into the coaching mindset. So they're given a graduate out the blue, usually a member of HR turns up and goes, "Hey, meet your new graduate." And the manager sort of looks, "Oh, fuck." And there's very little support, or goes, "Oh dear." And there's very little support from the manager to move into that coaching mindset that Paul says. So I thought that was a great answer, Paul, thank you. We've got a few graduates in the room, haven't we? So has anybody got a question? Okay, I'm going to come over. Amy, I'm coming to you, Amy. Okay, can you pass the microphone along to Amy? That's Amy just there.
Hiya. The question that what happens if you're given a graduate, and Lee said when you receive one, so it sounds like you would never choose to have one. Why is that? Is there a stigma? Is it too hard? Because obviously I'm biased, but I think we can bring a lot to your teams. But why is it you're given one or you're receiving one, not actively going and looking?
So I would say from my perspective, maybe this question was worded badly, but certainly from some of my recruitments, getting people who want to look at my mindset and how things work. I found it easier to get someone who's new and raw, so I would look at graduates. I definitely would, because you can have a 10-year-old tester and he will draw a page object model diagram on a wall and say, "Yeah, I'm going to write it in Java." Well, that's great, or C#, sure. How is that going to help us? So, again, personally, I would rather get someone who's willing to learn and get the correct mindset rather than an established person.
Anybody else want to answer that? Okay, Ian, you take that one.
I feel really smug about this because the first thing I did when I took over was close down all the recs and convert them all into hiring graduates and associate engineers, so people with less experience. Mainly because it is a quickly changing world. I want to instill really good behaviours. If you're looking for that unicorn in the corner and spending all your time to pull them in, then you're actually missing the opportunity of bringing a lot of really good people. I particularly like Doris and the graduates there, because it means you can bring them in, get rid of them. But no, I think I like the idea of bringing lots of new graduates in and building the broad base of enthusiastic talent.
Ian?
I would echo that. We've got some fantastic graduates at Rock, and some of the best projects, the most exciting things I've done in my career as an old person, presumably earlier in my career, back before I can remember, but was working with teams of interns and graduates to do stuff where they did the stuff and I was just like support and back up. And there's some things being delivered by teams of interns I worked with a few years ago, where you're just looking at this thinking, if you asked a seasoned IT professional, can this be done in 12 weeks, they would say no. And then these guys did it because no one told them it was impossible. and frankly, for me, that's very, very exciting. I love working with I absolutely love working with graduates and interns. I think that it provides an energy and excitement and sometimes the ability to do small to medium-sized miracles, or even large ones.
That's a really good point. And I've witnessed this in the last 2 weeks. So one of the agile teams we've set up at Shop Direct, who own very.co.uk, we've had a problem and we put it through the traditional waterfall path. And that includes project managers, architects, it includes everyone. It was like £500,000 estimated to make the changes. We gave it to the agile team, we gave it to a graduate, and he banged it out in 2 weeks because he had no fear. And people of a certain age, if you remember Paul Gascoigne, can you put your hand up, the footballer? Okay, so he burst onto the scene in 1990, the World Cup. And the reason he made such an impact is because he was a bit like a graduate. He had no fear, he had creativity, he had skills. He had like this amazing mind of just saying, I don't care if I fail, because if I do, I'll just get up and start again. And that's what reminds me of like the graduates that we have coming into Shop Direct and listening to the passion here. I'm guessing that's throughout all the companies we're talking about. And Jem, I know you've not specifically had any, but I've seen the guy who spoke at Edge Hill last week, and boy was he full of passion and purpose. He was amazing. Was it Matt Robinson? Absolutely incredible. And I looked at him, I just thought, my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my God, there's a future Paul Gascoigne. Not like for the testing world, but like, I was looking at him thinking, I would never have had the balls to do that when I was his age. And it's just amazing to see. So, okay, absolutely brilliant. So we're going to move on to the next question. How should testers stay relevant? What can they do to add value? Ooh, who wants to go first? Jem, do you want to go first? You got the mic?
Can do.
Yeah, is that all right?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go second? First or second?
I'll go first.
Okay, go on then.
I'm good. I made notes. I'm all good. Because I'm actually feeling this pretty hard at the moment, like how I'm adding value.
Okay.
Because so I started the job that I'm at now in August, and I've just gotten, I think I'm just now starting to get to grips with everything. I moved from an agency of 50 people to the BBC, so quite a big culture, everything shift. And it's taken me this long to get to grips with everything, and so now I'm there going, right, where can I add value, what can I do? And part of it is trying to apply all the stuff that I've been reading about and learning, and that's quite hard to actually take it from what you've been learning and applying it to things. And then also I have this kind of weird anxiety. I'm going to talk about my anxieties, guys, sorry. That's what happened to give me a microphone. About the balance between me doing personal development like this and me actually making sure I have time and space and energy to be at work and do things. So I recently had like most of 2 weeks off, just doing, I went down to Brighton to do a talk, I went to Leeds to the testing atelier, then there was 6 days of test bash. And then that took me like a week to get over because my brain was smashed, and I'm like, well, so yeah, this is all this value and stuff, but how do I balance like doing stuff and providing value? And also, where's the work-life balance? Where is the employer-employee? If I'm doing all this stuff in my spare time, what is the employer then giving me? Because there's a lot of focus on, people should do stuff outside work and go to meetups. It's like, well, why am I giving my employer all this free stuff? You know? I mean, yeah, I'm doing it because I enjoy it, but surely my employer should also be giving something back at that.
Ooh, okay. That is really interesting. We'll probably come back to that once everyone's gone. So, Claire, do you want to go next? Is that all right?
Yeah, in terms of remaining relevant, I would say make sure you're kind of always learning. Lots of people don't, might not have time to kind of go to meetups and conferences and things outside work, but make sure you're always learning in work if you can, kind of, either go to events, speak to people, interact with people outside of your company, and find out what's going on in the testing industry. Make sure you're kind of aware of trends and things that are happening. Read stuff, read books. A lot of people don't tend to read books about, even about non-testing stuff, but things that might be relevant to testing and psychology and things like that. There's so much stuff that can relate to the job that we do. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Good shout. Who's got the microphone? Yeah.
I'll firstly echo what has been said previously. Personal development, coming to events like this, reading books, reading blogs, There's a question coming up about things beyond tech and what to read to, which will be an interesting one, so we'll deal in that one if it comes up. But I think this is an interesting one. I think if you look at yourself as a tester in your current role and you don't feel like you're adding value, you want something different, find another job. It's a weird one, but from personal experience, it's how I've ended up where I am now. I took it as far as I could, and I didn't see what was coming up, and I was like, right, I want to change, I want to do something different. And the only way I could do that was by moving elsewhere.
I can only echo that, Paul, because that's been my stance as well. Ian?
I think there's a few things come to mind about this. So the first one is that we used to live in a world where you could have a job description, and the job description would tell you what was your job, and by implication what was not your job. And I don't think we live in that world anymore. And so I guess my first thing is think of yourself as a member of a team or whatever, whatever your context is, but maybe soften the boundaries around what you consider is your job and isn't your job, and take an interest in other stuff. We sometimes find ourselves talking about this concept of shifting left, so making yourself become involved in the delivery process earlier than the test phase, but earlier and ever earlier. I've done a lot of, over the last couple of years, stuff around design thinking, which is right at the beginning of the process. And design thinking is a discipline about empathising deeply with the end user that you're building something for. And that informs what you build, but it should also inform how you test. And one thing I think is really, really important that I think testers should do is to, first of all, develop as much empathy as they can for the end users of the stuff they're testing. And second of all, maybe start to be a specialist in a particular industry or a particular domain where you can have a very high level of knowledge. If you have those two things, then you'll pretty much always know what the end user would be expecting and also what should really happen. And I think if those things, join those dots together and don't be too fussy about is it your job or not when you're considering whether to do something.
Richard?
Yeah, mine's a truly generic answer, because this is what I tell my children, I tell anybody who asks me this sort of question. Don't be a cargo culter. It's that easy. Understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then challenge anything that doesn't make sense. And you'll be applicable and relevant in whatever you do.
Wow, okay. Some really sound advice there. Any questions from the floor on that specific question? Because I think this is probably one of our biggest questions, because as testers, if we don't add value, we're seeing, if you're in the testing community or if you're following anything regarding testing, you'll see that some companies are going to testerless companies. In other words, they're getting rid of testers. And the reason for that is they haven't understood the value, or the testers haven't added value. So has anybody got a question for the panel on this? Because I think this is probably our key question for the night, to be honest. No? Our key question, we have no questions. Okay. Echoing what Paul said, it takes a certain kind of person to say, when I stop adding value, I walk. And I'm absolutely 100% with you on that. Every company I've been at, when I've stopped adding value, I walk, and it takes pairs of balls. It takes balls of steel to do that. Okay, so we're going to have one more question, guys, and then we're going to wrap up. So the last question, according to you, regarding importance is, what's your biggest bugbear with or about testing? Okay, so who would like to start on the panel? Okay, we'll start with Paul.
That's all finished. My biggest bugbear with testing, and anybody who knows me and has talked to me, and we've had discussions about this, is the overuse, misunderstanding, not really understanding automation testing. So automation testing isn't something that happens at the end of a system. You don't really need to have a team based around it. It happens everywhere. you can do it all the time. You can get your developers to write automation tests, unit tests for automation tests, integration tests for automation tests. It's like people have invented an entire industry around writing high-end, several end-to-end tests written in Selenium, and just basing frameworks off what they need to do rather than actually understanding it. And I think it's quite interesting how we were talking about value, and value that some automation tests, well, how to be valuable as a tester. So I've looked at a lot of stuff in the industry that I've been in, and I've kind of looked at it and I've gone, right, so do you know this end-to-end test here that's testing how the search box works? Should we maybe wrap that in a Karma test and test it in components? And that's been like, well, why would we do that? Because you can do it in the CI environment instead of putting it on a server and running tests that take 15 to 20 minutes. You can do it in 5 seconds in a CI environment across every browser. And that's a bit of a misunderstanding about automation. I mean, people look at automation and they say, right, we're going to do automation testing, so we need to buy a tool, or we need to hire somebody who writes a language that the rest of the developer staff isn't in, and we're going to do that. And they kind of just go, let's have some automation. Yeah, we've got automation. What have you got? We've got 100 Selenium tests. Great. How's that working out for you? Well, we spend most of the time trying to fix them. Oh, okay. You thought about maybe testing this up there? And I know it's hard. I can understand that people do this based on the fact that they have a system and it's not been engineered for test, but I'd say to that point, start thinking about test engineering and putting it further up the stack.
Can I just say before we move on, we'll come to Claire next, but if anybody doesn't know this guy here, you mentioned API testing there. This is Matt Breton. He ran a 3-hour workshop at Manchester Test Bash on API testing. If you want to come and talk to this guy about API testing, automating API testing, this is a cool dude, man. Okay, so Claire.
So my biggest bugbear about testing is the perception that some people who are not testers have of what testing is and what testers do, in that they think that we just kind of get set requirements and we just check those requirements and check the software works, and that then, you know, and that's the reason we can just automate all those things and people just do the same things that the testers do. Whereas testing should really be about learning and exploration and, you know, providing information and all sort, you know, much broader thing than just, we just want to make sure, we just want to check the requirements and make sure it works. So.
Wow.
I'm just going to say exactly. Writing tests and executing tests is not testing. And that's the biggest one that annoys the hell out of me when I see someone tells me, oh, what unit test coverage have you got? I don't care. Just not important, totally irrelevant question. It's the quality and of the people who are looking at what you're producing, and does it actually meet the expectations of your customer? Start at the person who has to use the stuff you're writing and tell me, does it work properly? I've lost count a number of times in the company working for and in other companies where we've declared stuff working, we've actually gone through a release and we found out it doesn't work. And why it doesn't work is no one bothered to actually be the customer. And we've introduced things like mob testing on user acceptance tests, because we were having a 2-week UA test period. We didn't find any problems. We released it. Business said it's fine. And he fell over us straight away. And then we were all red-faced because financial services are really pissed with us. Frequently. And instead, what we did was, Simon, wave your hand. He had a brilliant idea of just getting the business guys into a room with the test guys for an hour, and they mobbed it, and they found a whole bunch of problems, which is actually the whole point of having testing, isn't it? If testing didn't have any problems, well, is testing doing everything? But yeah, understand, just writing test cases, just running tests isn't the same as testing.
Ian?
So I have been outside testing looking in for most of my career, and there's been something that's been bothering me that I've only recently, now that I've come inside the happy family that is testing, that I've only really now figured out what it is. And it's because Ash Winter, who spoke at one of these earlier in the year, when he heard I was going to get into testing, he said, oh, well, here's a bunch of stuff, you should read this stuff. And one of the things was a video by a lady called Sally Goebel, who's the head of QA at The Guardian. And this hit me like a train. I completely changed my view. And basically the video was about, what do you do when you don't do testing anymore? And I was like, oh, I don't understand what this is about. But anyway, I thought I'll listen to it. And what the video made me realise is that actually it's the outcome of working software that's important. And testing is a mechanism to get to that outcome, but it's not the only mechanism. And so what I guess that is my bugbear for years about testing. I've only recently been able to identify is that people get obsessed with the activity of testing and they think, oh, we must do this, we must do that. But actually, what you should do is to wind all the way out to the outcome of working software and figure out the best way to do it from that perspective. And from the perspective of the end user as well. Sorry, I love that answer so much I can't help repeating it. But that's my bugbear.
Brilliant. Jem?
So mine is very much the same, but so all the places I've worked, there's always been at least 2 different groups of end users, and so we've always been focused on the customer, and I'm like...
You put that by your foot.
I did, I went... Let's do it again, test it. No. Sorry, Jem. That's him, that is. Give him a whack.
Just don't give me that microphone.
Oh my God, it is. You see that again then? Let's test it again. Watch. Oh no.
This was the moment when the wheels came off. Remember this.
Jem, my apologies, carry on.
So what I spent a lot of time doing is going, okay, so this looks good from a customer point of view, but what about the people who actually need to put the stuff on the site that you're going to sell? Because they kind of need to be able to work it as well. And one of the first things I asked when I came to a first job was, okay, so I know what happens from the end user point of view, but what about the content editors? What do they do? And there's a lot of things where people go, oh yeah, you should probably talk to them as well. And I'm like, yeah, they count as end users as well, guys. And that thing of, I've always been a big advocate of getting those people into a room and talking to them, because I don't know what they want. Like, I could guess, I can make an educated guess, but I'm never going to know their needs as well as they are. So just talk to people. I like talking to people. I think everyone should talk to people more.
Yeah. People interactions over process and tools, maybe. Okay. Guys, we're looking, or we're aiming for a 8:30 finish to allow you to have beers and network. So what we're going to do, if you've got any questions for the panel regarding that one, go and buy them a beer and have a drink with them. Yeah? Does that sound cool? Yeah. So, can we please have a round of applause for our panellists?